Not the biggest, not the meanest, but maybe the nastiest. At 5 foot 10 inches and 215 pounds, Tie Domi shouldn't have survived in the NHL's heavyweight division. But he didn't just survive, he thrived. 333 fighting majors, the most in NHL history at the time of his retirement. 3,515 penalty minutes, one of the highest totals ever recorded. He protected his teammates with the fury of someone who had nothing to lose. And he crossed lines that even old-school enforcers refused to touch. Tie Domi didn't just fight, he made enemies on purpose. Let's start with what made him untouchable in his own locker room and unbearable everywhere else. 3,515 penalty minutes over 16 NHL seasons. 333 fighting majors. Those weren't just numbers, they were a job description. In the 1990s NHL, enforcers weren't luxuries, they were necessities. You needed someone willing to answer the bell when your star got cheap-shotted. Someone who'd make opponents think twice before running your goalie. Domi didn't just fill that role, he weaponized it. But here's the problem with having a short fuse and a long memory. Eventually, you stop protecting and start retaliating. And Domi crossed that line more than once. This is where his reputation split. Teammates loved him, opponents wanted him suspended, and the league spent years trying to figure out which version of Tie Domi they were dealing with night after night. Before we talk about the cheap shots, we need to talk about why Domi earned respect in the first place. Because make no mistake, when the gloves dropped, he showed up. February 9, 1992, Madison Square Garden. Bob Probert versus Tie Domi. Probert was the undisputed heavyweight champion of hockey. 6 foot 3 inches, 225 pounds with a reputation that preceded him into every arena. Domi didn't back down. He went toe-to-toe with Probert for what felt like an eternity. Probert landed more clean shots, but Domi held his own so well that some observers gave him the edge. That fight was rated 8.39 out of 10 by fans. It became an instant classic. Then there was Rob Ray. They fought multiple times, but on November 21, 1996, Domi dominated. He landed significantly more clean punches. The commentators gave it to him. The fans gave it to him. That bout was rated 8.64 out of 10, one of Domi's highest-rated fights ever. January 12, 1998, opening face-off against the New York Rangers. Darren Langdon and Tie Domi didn't even wait for the puck to drop properly. They chirped, they jabbed sticks, then they dropped the gloves literally 8 seconds into the game. Both fighters switched hands multiple times. Dozens of punches were thrown. It went on so long the commentators ran out of things to say. One of the best fights of 1998, rated around 8.5 out of 10. Domi started strong with a barrage of lefts. Langdon fought back hard. Neither man quit. But the knockout that everyone remembers happened on April 15, 1998. First period, Domi forced the fight with Cam Russell in the corner. He landed a big left that stunned Russell. Then another. Then another. Russell's helmet flew off. Then Domi landed one more, a massive left hook that dropped Russell backwards onto the ice. Russell was motionless. His head had hit the ice hard. He needed a stretcher. Domi got an instigator and a misconduct. But the message was sent. At 5 foot 10 inches, Tie Domi could knock out heavyweights. This wasn't just toughness. This was fearlessness mixed with calculated violence. And when you combine that with a temper that could flip in seconds, you get someone who didn't just enforce, he escalated. There is a line between protecting your team and hunting for revenge. Tie Domi didn't just cross it, he erased it. 1995, Toronto Maple Leafs versus New York Rangers. Ulf Samuelsson had been taunting Domi all game. He called him dummy, mocking Domi's dyslexia. Earlier in the play, Samuelsson had hooked Domi near the face. Then Domi snapped. He skated up behind Samuelsson, who wasn't looking, and delivered a blatant sucker punch directly to his face. Samuelsson was knocked out cold. It was widely called one of the cheapest shots in NHL history at the time. Completely unprovoked in the moment, from behind, no warning. Domi was suspended for 8 games and heavily fined. But that wasn't his worst moment. May 3, 2001, Eastern Conference Semifinals, Game 4. Toronto leading the series 3-1. 7.4 seconds left in the game. The puck was nowhere near Scott Niedermayer. Tie Domi skated across the ice well away from the play and delivered a vicious elbow directly to Niedermayer's head. Niedermayer was knocked unconscious. He suffered a concussion. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment retaliation. This was premeditated. 2 games earlier, Niedermayer had slashed Domi in the face, drawing blood. No penalty was called. Between benches, Domi reportedly told Niedermayer he would get him back. Niedermayer later said Domi had threatened to take a suspension on me earlier in the series, and that's exactly what happened. Domi received a game misconduct on the ice. The NHL suspended him for the remainder of the 2001 playoffs. When Toronto lost the series in Game 7, the suspension carried over to the first 8 games of the 2001-02 regular season. Total, roughly 11 games missed. Years later, Domi called it the dumbest thing I did in my career. He said it was one of his biggest regrets. But the damage was done. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't even a response in the heat of battle. This was a choice, a deliberate, calculated hit to the head with no attempt to play the puck. It became known as the elbow of infamy, and it confirmed what many already believed. Tie Domi didn't just protect, he punished. Then there were the moments that had nothing to do with hockey. March 29, 2001, Philadelphia. Domi was serving a penalty. Fan in the stands, Christopher Falcone, started heckling him. Domi sprayed water from his bottle at the fan and others nearby. The fan climbed the glass. It broke. He fell into the penalty box. Domi immediately grabbed him and punched him multiple times. Officials rushed in to break it up. Domi was fined the maximum $1,000 allowed at the time, no suspension. The fan had initiated the physical contact by falling in, but Domi didn't hesitate to finish it. Then there was the night he fought 2 guys at once. 1996-97 season, Toronto versus Dallas Stars. After a line brawl, Grant Ledyard and Daryl Sydor double-teamed Domi. Most players would have turtled or backed away. Domi threw punches at both of them. He landed a memorable double punch, 1 fist for each opponent. He didn't win, but he didn't lose either. He just refused to back down. That's the thing about Tie Domi. His short fuse wasn't a weakness in his mind. It was his identity. Here's what separates Domi from some of the other names on this list. He owned it. When asked about the Niedermayer elbow years later, he didn't make excuses. He called it his biggest mistake. He expressed regret, but he also defended the rest. The fights, part of the job. The scrums, protecting his teammates. The retaliation, a response to being provoked. From a teammate's perspective, Domi was untouchable. He would go anywhere, do anything, take on anyone. That kind of loyalty is rare. But from an opponent's perspective, you couldn't trust him once his emotions flipped. One slash, one chirp, one look, and the switch could flip from enforcer to hunter. And that volatility is what made him nasty. Not because he was the dirtiest player ever, he wasn't. Not because he was the toughest, he probably wasn't, but because you never knew which version of Tie Domi you were going to get. So where does Tie Domi rank in the pantheon of nasty players? It depends on who you ask. Old school fans will tell you he was exactly what hockey needed in the 90s, a fearless protector who kept stars safe and made games physical. Modern fans will tell you he crossed lines that had no place in professional sports. Sucker punches, elbows to the head, punching fans. Both sides are right. Tie Domi wasn't the most skilled player, he wasn't the biggest, he wasn't even the meanest, but he was uniquely volatile. He fought heavyweights and won. He protected teammates without hesitation. And he also delivered cheap shots that ended careers and earned suspensions. He wasn't just an enforcer, he was a warning label. A reminder that the thing that made you valuable could also make you dangerous. And in a league that spent decades trying to figure out where the line between toughness and violence should be drawn, Tie Domi stood right on top of it, sometimes defending it, sometimes erasing it, but never pretending it wasn't there. If you want more stories about the players who made the NHL impossible to ignore, stick around. We've got plenty more coming. And leave a comment. Did Tie Domi cross the line, or was the line just different back then?